Welcome to the BTTB podcast. I'm your host, Jonathan, here with a special guest. We got Logan out of North Carolina. He's a defensive lineman, junior in high school, competitive strongman, and just overall a jacked and big son of a gun because he came from Kentucky. No, that's a side note. But we're excited to have him on today. We're going to be talking all things weightlifting, all things strongman, football. We're going to talk a little bit about how to add 100 pounds to your body mass in just a couple of years in high school. As you can see, he's eating pizza rolls, and that's not what I would suggest as the way to do that. But we're going to get into that. We're going to have a great episode. Seems like a great kid, and I'm excited to get to this. Logan, thank you first and foremost for coming on the show. Without kids like you willing to come tell your story, I wouldn't have a show. And I wouldn't be able to reach the kids that aren't doing what you're doing and hopefully inspiring them to, go pick up a barbell, go into the weight room, try a competition and things like that. So thank you for coming on today.
Thank you so much. My pleasure.
We're going to get started, Logan, just like we do on every episode. I'm going to give you the floor. I'm going to let you spend about 5 or so minutes just giving us a little bit of background about yourself, kind of your history as an athlete, what really motivated you that first time in the weight room or to get into the weight room, and then a little bit about that kind of first journey into lifting weights and things like that. And then we'll get into some more specific details. But we just want to get to know you first.
Okay. Yeah, for sure. So I've been an athlete since a kid, football since I've been about 4 years old, played that competitively all the way up until now. I'm 17 years old. So, I'm not too good with math, but over 10 years. And it's definitely been a fun journey. I think the strength picked up right around middle school, seventh, eighth grade. Your body starts to change. You get taller, you get bigger. You start wanting to like get a little bit more male. Like, I think I want to, start hitting the weights. And
So when
I
that
thought about it.
testosterone starts hitting.
Exactly, yeah. I thought about it and I just like I was into it because I have strongman memories and I remember when I was a kid seeing Mikhail Shivakov at the Arnold. He pulled 420 kg on the deadlift and he started shaking and his nose started pouring blood, but he got the lift and I just remember like that's so cool. Like he looks like a guy of a comic book.
Just for the record, that's about 900 pounds. That is
Yeah,
a little
900,
over 900.
900 like 26 pounds or something like that. Crazy.
Yep, 928. Yeah.
Yeah, something in that range. But yeah, it's just all those memories, and I just led up to it. My buddy, and yeah, my buddy in seventh grade, it was towards the end of the year. He was like, "We should go to the local gym." So we got a day pass. I worked out with him on a weekend. We maxed out on everything. We messed our backs
Like
up.
young boys, like
Yeah,
young boys
we were
do.
maxed out on deadlift, squats, bench, triceps, everything we could load up the max. And then the next day, I remember we called each other and we were like, "Is your back hurt too?" Because we just wrecked each other's bodies. Like it was terrible, but it was just part of the experience. And it's a good memory looking back now.
No.
But
Okay. So you said that was in middle school.
yeah, that was I'd say seventh going into eighth grade year, and then some of eighth grade year.
So hindsight, would you say for first time gym goers to go as hard as y'all did?
No, I wouldn't say it was as good to go like me and my buddy Aiden did. I would just say it was a good experience because instead of, going in there and easing in and like being like, do we really like this? We went in there and we got the taste of, we got a taste of our own medicine because we had such big egos. And I think that's so good for teenage boys because everybody always wants to fight and be like, I can do this and that. Everybody has egos. When you go
Yeah.
in the gym, that's how you get your ego checked. If you could pick up
Yeah.
300 pounds, because that doesn't, you got to fight that yourself. That can
Yeah.
humble you real quick if you can't do that. Then you're like,
Yeah.
well,
Weights.
maybe I'm actually weak.
Weights will definitely humble you. I'm not opposed to someone going into the gym going crazy. I think as a male, it's just part of our learning experience. And what I would say though is just make sure that's a one and done kind of thing. Once you realize that you enjoy the weight room, try
Yeah.
to educate yourself on what really is good because I know there's so many kids out there that have aspirations to, get big and strong for football or for lifting or things like that. And they are maxing out too regularly. They're not giving their time to recover. They're not doing enough hypertrophy to build muscle and to actually get stronger. So like I said, not opposed to doing boy or even young male things in the gym for the first or second time, but just learn. If you start loving something, learn more about it. And then that way you start achieving your goals early, I should say.
Exactly. Yep. I
Yeah.
100% agree.
So middle school, we went to the gym and we got a day pass. How long was it before you actually said, all right, I got to get a membership? I want to do this over and over again.
Yeah, so it was so 8th grade going in ninth grade, that whole summer doing football workouts. It was for the high school football team, and it's one of the best in North Carolina, top 10 in the state. And so I had a lot to train for if I wanted to, start on the JV team or, have a chance to play varsity. So I started working out because they put me in the weight room every day. We hit heavy bench, heavy, squats. We didn't deadlift in the football weight room. It was just cleans and stuff like that. But that
Most
started going
football
good.
programs don't deadlift.
No, at least mine don't. The new school I'm at right now do, but they don't. It's just different every school you
Yeah.
go to. Some
I've
schools
seen a
don't.
lot of programs do like have trap bars and do trap bar deadlifts because they can convert into some more football range of motion and things like that. So I like to ask one because this is going to get back into the backstory, but you're trying to make JV, you want to be bigger and stronger for competitive reasons. How big were you your freshman year?
So I'd say going into my freshman year, I was probably about 6'1". I would be about 195 to 205, somewhere in that range right there, going in from 8th grade to my freshman.
So overall, a big son of a gun, honestly, as a freshman, but you just kind of knew to be competitive in such a, I guess, a good football program that you needed to be bigger and stronger because the probably the juniors and seniors on that team were bigger and stronger than you at the moment.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. Um, so I like to talk because I'm a very pro con high school weight room person. Like I said, I don't think there's enough supervision a lot of times in a lot of programs. Don't get me wrong, that's not every. And I think over the years it's getting better and better, especially for high schools that put a lot of funds and a lot of attention to their athletic programs. They're starting to hire actual strength and conditioning coaches for all their sports, which is making the programming a lot better. But tell me a little bit about, we talked about what you did, but talk to me about the oversight or what the coaches were trying to tell you or what kind of program they were running. That way we can kind of dissect that compared to what you know now as a lifter and things like that.
Yeah, so ever since even my freshman year when we were in the weight room, because like I said, I had got into it in the summer really, and then I got put into weightlifting in one of my classes for school. So it was one of my classes I had to do every day. It was my first class. It was like 7 in the morning. We had to lift heavy every single day. But I started to fall in love with it then. So it was, whatever. And I just remember like some of the stuff, because I remember I was surrounded by a group at the local gym. There was a small group of powerlifters and they had taught me a lot of stuff about how to bench properly, how to deadlift, how to squat, all the smaller cues. And I remember I'd go into the football weight room, and the football coaches would be the opposite. They would be like teaching what I know now is wrong technique. It's like they have a good idea of what they're trying to teach, but they're not teaching it right because in a way it's hindering on me. Some of the stuff they would do in there, I felt like was too excessive because I would see who these competitive powerlifters were and what they were saying and football guy who just used to play football and now is a coach for a weight room saying oh do this and everybody's following along. So I did my own thing a little bit when it came to it. Sometimes I got in trouble for it, but it made me stronger, so I knew it worked.
So would you say it's more like their cues on like how to position their bodies or what, where to put the hands, what to do with, the elbows, things like that? Or was it more program based errors where, you're hitting maybe, you know, singles every three? I've seen some programs where it's like fives for a week, threes for a week, ones for a week, and then you
Yeah.
just fly back, go, which is not going to get anybody better long term. Now, granted, high school kids that don't have a lot of room experience, they're going to show progress for a year or two. Don't get me wrong, just because of newbie, what we like to call newbie gains, but it's not overall conductive to building strength or maximizing strength gain. So, which one was it, cues or was it more programming?
I would say it's more cues from what I've seen from the school at Cleveland versus the school at Willow now is where I'm at. I would say both schools, and they're very similar in ways. Their cues are just not good because the way they teach squat, it's not to depth. It's like to barely 90 degrees. It's like you squat down and your knees are just starting to bend and your quads are just starting to go down, and then they teach to go back up. And it's
Yeah,
like, well, wait a minute, that's like a box squat.
yeah. Which I've seen some even higher than box squats. I would much rather them do box squats to a standard, like just to a height that's over and over again, than have them free squat and have like half squats. Because
Absolutely.
I've seen so many high school videos where it's like 500 and it literally looks like the range of motion is less than a leg press. I'm like,
Yep.
well, no wonder you can do 500. But at least
Yep.
a box squat would force a standard of depth. Now, whether that standard is high, low, whatever you want to say, but at least it's repetitive,
Yeah.
versus box squats are actually really good for football players because it drives more hip strength than it does quad strength. Um, all right, so we talked a little bit about high school weight room. Like I said, I like to talk to people like that because I find too many teenagers think, don't get me wrong, you're supposed to look up to your coaches and you're supposed to listen to them and things like that. But realize that not every coach, especially when it comes to strength, is, world renowned. They're getting better, but take it with a grain of salt. Maybe go do your own research or things like that. But I hope that schools keep on investing in strength and conditioning coaches just for safety purposes, and honestly just for the kids' physical abilities. Like it'll progress them more rapidly, less injury prone, things like that. So I do hope that the school systems continue putting education and funds into that. It doesn't help having a $100,000 weight equipment room if you got $5 programming and technique teaching.
Yeah. You go off of Google and you look up, oh, football weight
Uh,
room program.
Yep. I used to, so I remember, which I was in high school 20 plus years ago, but they used to have a chart where it was like 86661, and then the next week it would be 86441, and they would just do a program. And I'm like, I mean, don't get me wrong, I did it 18, 19 because they used to make copies and give to the people that weren't in football or things like that. But knowing what I know now about strength and how to get better, I'm like, that was, don't get me wrong, it works at 16, 17, but it wouldn't work for someone that's got 5, 6 years of weightlifting experience.
Way, way too much usually.
Yep. All right. So we're playing freshman ball. We're in the weight room. We're falling in love. We're still a pretty far ways out from actually doing your first strength competition. But tell me what, I know that you talked about watching strongman on the TV / the internet. When did that passion to, okay, I want to try this, and talk to me how you kind of said when you decided that you wanted to give it a try, how did you go about it? Because strongman is a very unique sport. A lot of gyms don't have equipment. It's a
Yeah.
niche sport. So how to figure that out? Not every state has a big presence of that sport. So finding competition. Talk me through a little bit of transitioning from, okay, I like the weight room. I'm going for football. I'm going and spending time in the off season as well to, oh, I want to try this.
Yeah. So freshman going into sophomore year, I was still going to the local gym because I like to work out by myself, usually not around a ton of people. And someone in the local gym brought a log in there, and it was a small little like star striped log, but you could add some weight onto it. And I remember I always watched strongman. I watched strongman for a couple of years up to that point, and I saw that
Gotta
and I
love
was like,
ESPN for making that famous.
exactly, yeah. And I remember I was saw the log and I was like, well, shoot, I've never tried a really strawman movement. Let me try that. And I started messing around with it. Horrible technique, but it was the start of something, because it was like, well, everybody, gives me way more attention when I'm doing this stuff. I'd had people come up to me like, dude, how do I do that? How do I do that? And I was some clueless 14, 15 year old.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I don't know.
Real quick. So to explain what a log is for anybody that doesn't know, a log is it's a cylinder device. Usually they're 6 to 10 foot long, probably a good, I don't know, 18 to 24 inches in diameter. So they're cylinder, they're logs. They have neutral grip handles built into the cylinder, and they're designed to clean and press overhead. But what makes them hard is one, the diameter of the equipment, the weight. Most logs, especially men's logs, can start at 100 and go up. I mean, I've seen a log that had chains built on it and was about 250 pounds
Yeah.
empty. So they're just a weird implement. Cleaning is very, very hard because the diameter, pressing out of the rack position because your face is kind of smushed against it is hard. So just a kind of a mental picture of what that is because that made such an impact to you. So you found the implement. Go continue your story.
I found the implement and I was like, well, that's actually really fun. And so right around that time, going into my sophomore year, is when my parents were starting to kind of fully separate and they were going into different housings.
Okay.
So we moved over here to this area and it was like 20, 25 minutes away. We eventually sold the other house we were living in where my dad was staying. And then we all moved over to this area, just two different places. And so I stayed in this house I am in right now, and I've been in here for about 2 years. And the gym I went to locally had Bull and Bear is what it's called. It's not the gym I go to regularly, but it's a gym over here. And I walked in there, and it's like a super nice powerlifting strongman type gym, kilo plates, powerlifting area, yoke, all different types of stuff. And I was just like, my head just like exploded. I was like, oh my god, like I love all of this. Like I've never seen all this kind of stuff. Like
So even though you knew about the sport, would you say the fact of finding a gym with such a strong presence of equipment and one an environment that really pushed that kind of mentality and that kind of lifestyle and that kind of sport was a huge impact to you actually getting into the sport and signing up for your first competition?
yeah, I would say so because I feel like the gym is definitely like the important because as soon as I went there, because most of the gyms I went to, I don't feel really welcomed in. I feel
Mhm.
kind of like a weird presence when I go into it. But this gym I went into, I felt welcome into it. It was a bunch of big guys lifting heavy weights, you know, cut off. Like everybody's wanting to do their work, but they're also, doing strength seriously, wanting to
Mhm.
get big, wanting to get jacked, wanting to get strong. Those kind of gyms I think are important for somebody who's getting into something like that because you don't feel judged and it's just you can do whatever your own.
Okay, so you talked about something that a lot of people experience or a lot of people fear, and I want to get your take being a teenager because I didn't go to a gym a lot, as a teenager. I didn't really find the gym a gym until I was probably about 25 or so. So you talked about feeling judged or feeling like you were getting looked at. What do you mean by that, and what do you think caused that? Because more than likely, you know as well as I do, no one was probably really judging you. It's just a something that we mentally go through. So what was giving that mentality or that kind of fear in your head?
Yeah, I think it's a part of it is I've always been a bigger kid. So like I've never been super, super confident in my body. And finding a strength sport like strongman like made me way more comfortable in my body and gave me way more realistic goals because everybody when they first get in the gym, they think bodybuilding. I want to look like Arnold. That's typically how everybody gets introduced. But I think for bigger guys, especially guys if you play football or just guys that are bigger and heavier, I think powerlifting and strongman are great because they give big guys a chance to like show off what their body can do. And in any other sport, it wouldn't be the case. I feel like so it gives big guys and people who are just bigger naturally, they gives them like a better.
Yeah. I don't necessarily think bodybuilding is anti big guys. They're just anti excess body fat guys, which not everybody, some people just want to eat pizza rolls every once in a while, you know?
Like me.
So I say that because, like I said, I think a lot of teenagers, a lot of women, just anybody that doesn't have that self confidence, we're always scared to go into new environments. And so I wanted to get your opinion. I do think And I think it's funny because I don't know what kind of gym you were talking about earlier. I would consider it more of a commercial gym, not necessarily like a Planet Fitness, but some kind of crunch, Planet Fitness, look like where half the place was cardio, half the place was, machines, and they might have had one rack in the
Yeah.
corner or something like that.
Yep.
I say that because honestly, I've seen from a lot of people that I talk to over and over again that they feel the same way, and it's harder to get out of that stigma in those kind of gyms, opposed to what many people would consider hardcore gyms or kind of strength specific gyms. Even if that's not your goal, just the welcomeness and the feeling of welcomeness in the environment and just the positivity that you get from the members and the wanting to communicate and, hey, what are your goals? How can we help you achieve them? Have you ever thought about this? Type comes from a lot more what I would consider hardcore or old school gyms. And I hate that those types of facilities are getting harder and harder to find. So if you're
Yeah.
lucky enough to have one of those areas, and you've been and you're looking to go to a gym or have been in a gym and looking for something new, give a hardcore old school gym a try. It's a different atmosphere, and a lot of times it breeds more dedicated, more adventurous as far as willing to try new sports atmosphere out, and you might fall in love with it. So I just give that to the audience because I think, unfortunately, that especially after COVID and during COVID, a lot of them went out of business, and I hate that for the nation. So you
That's
found a new
uh,
gym. It was strongman powerlifting, old school type feel. Talks about how you kind of transitioned into doing a more strongman. If there was anybody that really influenced that at the gym or kind of helped you out or things like that.
Yeah, so I started doing powerlifting seriously, and I was doing that around that exact same time I found that gym. So that's what I did. The first day I went to that gym, I maxed out on squat, log press, yoke. I did some deadlifts. I did I mean, literally everything I could do. I did farmer
So you
carry.
didn't learn your lesson from the first middle school.
Yeah, it was like I was so overwhelmed with the first time seeing strongman equipment. I was like, I got to try everything. Why not just try one thing, you know?
Yeah. Um, Boys, we're not very smart.
Yeah.
Especially when you give us new toys.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily know if maxing on everything was smart, but I don't necessarily blame you for wanting to play with all the new toys, but I don't know if maxing on everything was the smartest idea. All right, so we're playing around. You talked about being powerlifting. Now, did you ever compete in a powerlifting competition or
I never competed in an actual powerlifting competition. The first little competition opportunity I got was my sophomore year, the beginning of sophomore year. So this is when I was starting to really wanting to do strongman. And the gym I went to had a deadlift bar and stuff like that I could kind of
Mhm.
replicate. So that gym had a little charity event going on, a max deadlift event. And I think I was 15 during the time, and I signed up for it and I went. It was a bad day for me because I ate some garlic something that morning and it just wrecked my stomach. And I tried it multiple times since. Garlic powder and my pre workout does not mix. I don't know why, but it doesn't.
I wouldn't recommend garlic powder for anybody that's about to do a competition, just FYI.
Yeah, I didn't have a good day that day. I hit like 465. My max was like 500 at the time. Felt super heavy. I got super bummed out because it meant so much to me because at that point strength started meaning a lot to me because it was changing
Mhm.
my body and like changing my mind, my brain chemistry. So it bummed me out for the rest of the day, but I just ate a bunch of food and, went about my life. And that was my first little competition because it was so cool having people cheer for me lifting because that was my first time having that happen. Like people like, let's go, cheering, and it was just like, whoa, this is super.
I don't think people, and I say this over and over again as I interview athletes, outsiders don't understand how cool strength competitive atmospheres are, how supportive, how uplifting, and just the environment just breeds one, it breeds your ability to hit PRs usually, unless you have garlic powder before you do it. Just that atmosphere makes you put more into it. It makes you feel a lot more proud, a lot more supported. And I say that because so many people are getting scared to go compete. What if I don't do good? I'm like, most of those people are going to walk you through it, help you on, cheer you on, you know, give you uplifting advice, even if something goes bad. It's just, they're great atmospheres. So, sophomore year, we're getting into power. How did you never told me, where did you learn powerlifting or where did you kind of find out about that sport?
So my buddy Jacob Parrish, him and his family are powerlifters. His dad is kind of an OG kind of powerlifter from like the West Side '90s, 2000s era.
So
Um,
equipped,
yeah, so he's done some equipped lifting, but he's also a really strong raw lifter. He deadlifted like 900 raw.
lightweight.
Yeah, super strong guy. And his wife competed in bodybuilding, and she's also a power lifter. So their whole family are badasses, excuse my language. But
I'll
like
have to edit it out, but that's okay.
but yeah, they're all cool guys. And my buddy was like, you should start doing this with me. And so I went over to his house. His parents, they showed me all this different types of stuff, all these commands. They had all these pre-workouts and post-workouts and like it was super cool. And I just fell in love with it. And I started doing that, and then I went to one of his competitions, and I cheered him on. I loved the atmosphere. I supported him, and then I was going to compete in one, but that was right around the time I found the strongman.
Mhm.
So I was going from, well, I was going to do powerlifting, but now I think I'm going to do strongman and start competing in that because I like that more.
Okay. So that's a great transition. What about as a person that personally does more powerlifting than strongman? This conversation depresses me a little bit. But tell me a little bit about what about strongman makes it more appealing to you personally than like powerlifting does?
Well, I think for powerlifting, something for me is like if I'm going to make a career out of it and I'm going to give it my all, for me, powerlifting was very underwhelming because it was, oh, I need to train for my squat, I need to train for my bench, and I need to train for my deadlift.
Yeah.
And for me, it was just very like kind of boring. I feel like I was progressing slowly, but at the same time, it was only three lifts I was progressing at. And it was the same exact workouts. But when I started doing strongman, I had all this variety because
Mhm.
now I can do overhead presses, I can do deadlifts, I can do zerchers, I can do all this super interesting stuff that I wouldn't be able to do if I was doing powerlifting. It just I love it, and it just clicked with me more naturally because like I'm a bigger guy and my body's just shaped a little bit different.
Yeah. Um, it's a lot less static too. You're actually moving in strongman, and I'm assuming with your defense of linemen and just football background, that probably was a little more appealing as well.
Yeah, football absolutely helps because I think anybody who's an athlete for powerlifting, I think athletes who have been playing football for over 10 years or most of their life or any of these, like these super physical sports, it's so easy to go train for a powerlifting meet because your cardio is developed, and even as a big guy, even as being 300 pounds like I am, my cardio is fantastic from wrestling and football. So it's powerlifting, to guys like us is just very simple, and like I said, for me it's kind of underwhelming, but strongman it's so many more areas.
I'd be careful about how you say your cardiovascular is fantastic. Someone to challenge you to a 5K and see you go into a straight asthma attack
No, well, I'm bit more of I
relative
can
to the
play, I can do
sports
it for
that you
football
compete.
practice. Yeah,
Exactly. I
I
just
can.
be be cautious.
Yeah.
So, and I totally understand that, but I want to emphasize this and get your opinion. I tell a lot of people that strongman is powerlifting programming with additional toys
Exactly. Yep.
because 90% of your program is some kind of, I say press specifically, some kind of squat and some kind of deadlift throughout the week.
Yes.
So,
Yep. It's some
luckily for
variation.
you though, you just get to add different variations, different kind of bars, different rep ranges that you're testing as well. So like I said, I totally understand that. I actually started with strongman, did two competitions, and actually converted to dead or to powerlifting for a season because I wanted to get my deadlift up. Really, really good overhead presser. Had a lot of like good at farmers, yoke, stones, but my deadlift for my size was just weak. And so I was like, well, let's do a powerlifting program. Emphasize more deadlifting, take a little bit more of the stuff that I was already kind of good at out of the program and emphasize that. I wanted to do a competition, just say I did one and actually fell in love with the sport a little bit more. And I don't necessarily think while I think the training style is very similar but a little bit different, I think the competitive nature of each sport drives the more uniqueness than I do the actual training mentality because I think powerlifters, while we are extremely competitive and we want to win, we have the ability to in that sport assume as long as we hit a PR, we might have not been the best at that comp, but if we did better than what we did previous comps, we still kind of won. We still proved
Yeah.
that we're getting bigger and stronger. Whereas in strongman, placement and defeating competition is a stronger mentality. And don't get me wrong, neither one's good or bad or vice versa. They just inherently attract different kind of mental
Yeah.
competitors. If that makes sense to you.
Absolutely.
Um, you learned about powerlifting, you kind of transitioned more into strongman because of the amount of toys that you get to play with. Talk to us about like deciding, okay, I love this. I've been training with it for a little bit. Tell me how you found your first competition and what that was kind of like.
Yeah. So I found strongman through one of my buddies I'm close with now. His name is Nathan. He was at the same time the same age I was. I turned 16 and I was still just kind of doing football and powerlifting, but I'd been following him for a while since I was 15, and he had did strongman and he
So this is
competed
not
in.
a kid in your area, but you found on social media.
No, yeah, he lived in California, and funny enough, I actually ended up competing with him a couple years later. But yeah, I found him my freshman year, and I've been following him the whole time. And he had done strongman, he had done all these stones and deadlifts and all this cool stuff I've never seen before, you know. And I was just like, holy crap, this kid's the same age as me. He's over 300 pounds, and he looks like he's just big jacked guy. And I was like, I didn't know that was possible because I football coaches put in your mind, you're either skinny and athletic or you're big and you're fat. And I think football is very stereotypical with that because if you're a big, strong guy, then all of a sudden you get blamed for, different stuff. And, oh, well, that doesn't help you on the field, or, weight room warriors, what a lot of guys say. But yeah, I think that that's a big, just following him and seeing him do that kind of got me into wanting to compete.
I think a lot of thing too is a lot of coaches don't understand how to add size to a player well. They know they need to get the kid bigger. That's the only like worrying about how they get them from 240 to 270. They don't care as long as they can get to him. And unfortunately, it's a lot easier to go that when it's 98% fat versus, 50-50. So I think that unfortunately, and I just don't think that a lot of high schoolers have the drive to put in the work in the off season, if I'm being
Yeah,
which
for
in
sure.
order to add weight healthy and more competitively, even for football, you have to work long term. It's not just we're starting, off season camp in June. That's when I'll start putting in the weight room work. You have to do it, you know, December all the way up to
Absolutely.
May as well. So I think that's a bad reason why you see the fat big um in football, or they just go get the fatter kid and make him a football player because they know they can move mass.
Exactly. Yeah.
Um, so I want to talk to you about this, but and this is not a subject we've talked about before, but I love how you kind of worked into it. How vital has social media come to like learning about these things? Um, and how and you said that you are friends and you've competed. Was there communication between y'all prior to competing? Did you ask them questions? Did y'all like message back and forth? And kind of just talk to us about what social media and that communication has meant for you or done for you, because I just think it's a good topic in this generation.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so ever since I've been a kid, I've loved eating a ton of food, and I'll admit that I love food, and that's carried over all the way until now. And the guy I was following,
Pull your
he
hand back a little
was
bit. I'm tired of seeing it.
the what?
You're putting your hand in the camera more than you are actually. I know it's just a
Yeah,
nervous tick. It's fine, man.
so him, he always posted about all these like food things, and he was like, "Oh, I eat this many calories, I eat this many calories," and I was like, "Well, shoot, I eat a lot of food like that too." But everybody just says it's overeating. But I noticed that when I did that, I got way stronger and way bigger. And so I talked to him, I DM'd him about it. He was telling me like all of his little trips he does to the grocery store and all this crazy amount of food he eats a day, and how he follows all these strongman guys. And I like had got fully into it, and I had planned on competing in the competition because right around my sophomore year, I saw that the competition was about 8 months away. So I signed up for it, and I did my qualifying lifts way later, like after my later in my sophomore year, and that was in the summer. But yeah, just that whole sophomore year was kind of meeting people through strongman, meeting people like have done the same thing with food in their body and lifting, and that have the same mentality that I do, which I don't know anybody else around me who does have that
Yeah.
kind of mentality towards it. So it's good to meet people.
I say that because I think a lot of so one, the person you were talking to is someone your age. So it's not like he's a superstar in the sport because he's not old enough to actually compete with the actual big boys. But I say this because I fear that too many people use social media as just a viewing rather than what it actually can actually be more powerful for, which is the communicating. So if you follow someone that, don't get me wrong, if you're following an influencer, you're probably not going to get the same response. But if you're following a person, that is just posting their stories, their life, and you're inspired by them, or you want that same lifestyle, or you want to learn more about that, don't be scared to reach out. Hey, dude, I love what you're doing. I'm a lot like you. I'm big. I'm a bigger guy for my age. I want to learn more about this. Can you give me some tips? Like that's not even if they don't answer, what did you actually lose?
Yeah,
10 seconds
100%.
to type out a DM. I just say that because, like I said, as you know, how have I got most of these interviews so far? It's just random messages or random comments on people's posts. But I'm not scared to, one, not be answered, two, to be told no, because I don't lose anything except for the chance of potentially getting it. And
Yeah,
I think teenagers, y'all just fear that what if they don't they don't answer. Like that shouldn't be something that deters you from trying. Because
100%.
if failure is a reason not to do something, no one would have ever tried anything.
Yeah,
And
I definitely agree with that.
I find that I'm very proud of you for doing that because, like I said, I think 9 times out of 10, the the actual information or the camaraderie you get from it is a lot more. It goes a lot farther, I should say. I have power lifters that I don't live close that I message. Or, when I see them hit a new PR, I'll message them and we'll have a 10-minute back and forth conversation about something or another, and we catch up. I talk to more people that don't live close to me through social media that have common interests than me than I do anybody I ever went to high school with.
Same
And
thing with me.
I say that just because don't be scared and go ahead and start building your non geographical friends early because the odds of them being your friends after high school are a lot higher.
Yeah.
So you said you signed up for a competition, you did an online qualifier. What competition was that?
So America's Strongest Teen, I was starting to get big with, and I was starting to get big and strong. I was eating a lot of food, and I was training heavy. And I started a coach. I had a coach who was starting to give me program training, so I was starting to take training seriously. And I had got heavy, like 290s. And I remember I had signed up for the competition doing an online qualifier for America's Strongest Teen. So it was a max deadlift, 155, clean and press as many times as you can do in 30 seconds, and a 45-pound plate front hold. So it wasn't a big, super like giant qualifier. So I was like, well, I think I can actually do this. And I talked to my parents, and they were like, we might be able to make the trip out to California. So I submitted those. I qualified for it, and then, like I said, that buddy I'd been following for years, he was competing at the same competition. So I hit him up. I texted him about it. We eventually got on the FaceTime phone, and then since then we became like best friends. So we talk like every day. He texts me FaceTime, and it was just me like reaching out. It was nervous at first because, oh, well, I've watched this guy almost as like a fan like kind of base, but now I'm just going to talk to him, and since we're going to be competing, I'm going to get to know him, and I made a friend out of it, and it was like a guy who has the same interest.
So now was this last year's competition or was this a year before?
This was last year's competition, so
Okay.
this was 2024.
Okay, so awesome. Online qualifier. How many reps did you get on your clean and press?
I
Do you
think I
remember?
did somewhere between like 10 and 15, somewhere like that. I think I did. I just one motioned all of them straight from the ground to
Yeah.
overhead.
It was a
Um,
straight bar too, wasn't it? It didn't have to
yeah,
be any implement. Max deadlift. What was your max deadlift of that in the qualifying
think
video?
think I submitted back then. It was like a 545 deadlift. I think I submitted.
Not bad, not bad. Adding some time since that. I guess you didn't have garlic powder before you did that
No,
either, did
yeah,
you?
no. I just had a bunch of pre workout.
Let's see here. Let's get before we actually start about like the competition and you go into that and kind of that experience. I want to talk to you about dieting or nutrition and kind of because you said that this is your sophomore year, and you said you were about 290 already, but
Yeah,
yet going into freshman year, you're 200. And I mean, we can tell by the video you're not small, but you're not what we think of as big, like as in
yeah.
obese, per se either. So talk to me a little bit. I know training went into it, but everybody kind of, I mean, we talk about training all the time. I want to talk nutrition from a guy that has added 90 pounds of mass in what would be said maybe 18 to 24 months, which is and I'll say genetically you're probably prone to it, so that's probably 50% of the battle. I'll get that kind of asterisk out of the place because you know you're gonna have all the I'm a hard gainer come into the comments.
Yeah.
A lot of this, I'm sure, is going to be diligent. So, talk to us a little bit about one how you learned. I think you already mentioned your friend from the internet, but kind of tell me about what you've done to add weight, what you've been eating. Even tell me what your parents have said about their grocery bill per se, because I know that's been a topic or two. But kind of explain to the audience if you want to add size, this is what I did, type thing.
Yeah. So I think it was a lot of just kind of getting to know nutrition because, up until, a few years ago, I just thought of food as, oh, I'm hungry, let me go eat something.
Yeah.
Never about the macros or never about, what's in it and if it's good for me and that kind of thing. I just wanted to eat whatever. And I think a couple years ago, I started to really crack down and like, I went through a chicken and rice phase like everybody does in the gym. And all I was eating for like a week straight was plain chicken and white rice. And I thought that was going to be the magic for me. And I got some results off of it, but it was whatever. But I started realizing that, like, I was starting to look at videos and realizing that, well, I need to, balance out. So carbs, fats, proteins. I started, like, every meal was like, I started adding carbs into it, a protein, a fat, and then maybe like a fruit or, milk and just stuff like that. And I found that, like, the junk food, because I got into like a powerlifting mentality of, I'd watch a bunch of the old school powerlifting, and they were just like, "Oh, we just bulked until we were 330, 340 pounds," and they were talking about how they would eat pizzas and wings and all this type of stuff, and it was just the OG powerlifting, the big giant GH gut, that kind of thing. So it was. I started doing that, just pizza and chocolate milk and all this stuff, and I got chubby. I got like 290, 300. I was like, all right, let me tone it back a little bit. So I started doing more real food and I was doing a lot of meat, a lot of good carbs, a lot of stuff like that. And I noticed my body like completely changed and I felt way better, started getting stronger. And that's how I added on the good size. So it's
Okay.
it's super easy for me to add on
So
size.
let's talk. So you basically said for a portion of that weight gain, you probably did it the unhealthy way or the more body fat addition rather than the body mass or body muscle addition throughout most of that transition, you said, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But
It was
then
definitely a dirty bowl.
and then when you realized, oh, I've added so much weight, but yet I don't feel like it's been the right way, or the I didn't give me the results I wanted from a body mass percentage and a size of muscle and things like that. You change that. So I guess a good way, let's talk about what your goal for each day is or what you're eating in a day so people can realize what it actually takes for someone to stay around 300 pounds and be an athlete, a football player, you know, training for strongman, because I know what it probably takes and people wouldn't realize just how much food.
Yeah, so the eating is the biggest thing I get talked about at school by all my teachers and stuff like that. Is I eat probably like, I'd say on the lower end days like 5,000, on my higher end days 8,000 calories. So like I'm also have a faster metabolism. So I'm 6'2", barefoot, 6'3" with shoes on. So I'm a big dude, and like I said, I am about 300, 305, somewhere like that. So it's a ton of food. I wake up in the morning and I'll make 6, 8 eggs. I'll have cup and a half of white rice. I'll put sauce in it, maybe a little bit cheese, just like, proteins, fats, a little bit of stuff just to add in some extra calories. And then, I eat all that down. I make that taste good with seasonings and sauce. And I'm a big sauce guy. So I love sauce all over my food. So that's how I eat. That's how I eat most of my meals. And then a couple hours later, I'll go downstairs. I'll make a pound of ground beef, mix it with rice. Just the whole day of just like that kind of thing. Just protein, carbs. Milk. Hot. I try to drink a lot of water, try to stay hydrated, but just a ton of food every single day. And it sometimes it's like, oh, I got to eat again. Well, I'm trying to put on some size, so I need to. That kind of thing.
Talk to us a little bit about the struggle of eating at school. when you're trying to do this? So do you take your meals? Are they prepared? How, like, are you able to heat them up? Because managing a nutritional plan at a high school isn't always the easiest thing. So tell us a little bit about the struggles with that and how you've overcome and worked your way around that to ensure that you keep your size on and things like that.
Yeah, so I do try to bring most of the time I make a meal in the morning and I'll eat a meal for breakfast at my school. So I'll make a meal before I leave. Like typically what I'll do, and it sounds a little bit nasty, but I like to do ground beef and beans. So black beans. And I love black beans. They work really good with my body. They make me feel good. So I would eat those a lot of times for breakfast, or ground beef and rice, just some type of protein and carb in the morning to wake me up and get some carbs in me. So, because I'm really big on carbs, I love carbs, so I fill up on those every chance I can get. So I would eat that for breakfast, and then for lunch, I would just try. I would eat what the school would give. I would just try to limit, the crap I put on it. So I would just try to get chicken sandwiches, and I would try to limit the sauce and like try to do a healthier sauce that don't have as much calories. Because even though it's not the best quality, if you're just more mindful of what you're getting, you can add way more protein, or you can take away a lot less, nasty stuff. If you just be like, well, all I can get is a chicken sandwich and some fruit, but let me also not get a bag of chips and something like that that's going to
Yeah.
add, nasty calories and stuff right
Yeah.
in there. Just be mindful.
Okay. Um, let's see here. So you said you're eating about 5 or 8,000. Do you track like your food by any means, or do you have like macros that you're trying to obtain every day, or are you just kind of going by feel for that day and things like that?
I do sometimes track them when, like, on the weekends. Sometimes, typically, if I just have a free day where I'm not doing much, I'll track them. For me, I know what my body works well on. I just have to keep the food high. So I don't track every day.
Mhm.
That's something I'll do rarely. I found that as long as I'm eating decent, my body feels good and I look fine. So
Yeah.
I don't have to track. Like some guys I know, they want to track every single thing they eat. I don't really have time for that, especially, with school. Some of the stuff I have to eat is there. So yeah, I try to eat a good amount of carbs, a good amount of fats, a good amount of protein every day. Well, weird thing about me though is I really don't eat vegetables like that. I
I don't
don't.
either. Don't feel bad.
Yeah, I don't. I very rarely have vegetables. That's like maybe a once or twice a week thing, and then
Yeah.
everything else is just rice, potatoes, or like meat.
I say that because I could kind of tell that you didn't the way you were describing your food. But I think what you said is very good. You figured out a system that's managing the weight, your body weight, and the body composition the way you want, and you're sticking to that. If you decide that maybe, oh no, it looks like I've had a little more fat than I want, you tone down a little bit, maybe on the carbs. So you're doing it more naturally. And I think I say this because one, you're not a professional strongman by any means. You're still only competing once a year right now because of football. That's enough.
Yeah,
If you decide to take this in your young adulthood farther, you might have to change that mentality. But for where you want to be and what you want to do right now, that is enough. So I say that because strictness, obsession, fine detailing is great, but don't let your your habits or the strictness of your habits be larger than what your goals need them to be. Does that
yeah,
kind of make sense? And sometimes we get that from bad advice on the internet, like, hey, you have to do this. Or you go to and you look at the professional strongman and like they're tracking this and they're doing this, so I need to. Well, you're not trying to be a professional yet. Like you might want to be, but don't do what they're doing now. Find out what they did at your age or at your level because more than likely they're totally different. So I give you props on just kind of filling your way out and finding the way to be consistent for you because I see a lot of people sometimes get over ambitious and try to do things more than what their goals require them to do, I should say.
yeah.
And it
They just
leads them to
overthink
become
it.
inconsistent and want to give up quicker.
Yeah,
So definitely, so you track it every once in a while just to make sure that, you're falling in the ranges you want. You're listening to your body, what your body's doing on the scale and what your body's doing composition wise to kind of tell you where you're at. Probably a lot of what you're doing in the weight room, how you're feeling every day in there too, to kind of tell you if I need to maybe take away from this meal and add to that meal because it's going to be before training or things
Yeah,
like that. So I give you props on that. I'm a firm believer in find out what foods work for you as well, because everybody's going to have adverse reactions to certain foods. It's going to give you heartburn or gut,
yeah,
inconsistencies or things like that. So I give you props on all that. That's a good lesson. I do want to say though, you mentioned a couple of good foods that I'm a big fan of. If anybody's ever trying to bulk or anybody says they have time gaining weight, and just want to point those out. Milk. Milk is an amazing food for weight gain because it's very, very balanced. It has protein, fats, and carbs in it. I know I'm a big Rich Froning fan, even though I don't do CrossFit, just because he is an
yeah,
amazing athlete. And he was always talked about being small and having to gain weight. And that boy drank a gallon of milk a day as a way to get his calories in to manage all
yeah,
of his workouts and things like that. I've worked with athletes in football that have been able to add 20, 25 pounds of good weight in an off season because they've weight trained. And, he was only consuming about, I don't know, 60% of a gallon, half a gallon, a little over, but that was still so many more calories into his body. And it had enough protein, it was a good breakdown. So milk, beans are actually a really good source of fat, pretty high in calories as well, things like that. So I just give you props on knowing some things that worked for you and worked overall, and not just saying this is hard or I don't know what to do.
absolutely.
Let's transition into going to that first comp. Talk to me about, your parents said they could figure it out. Going from North Carolina to California, though, that's not a cheap expense. Kind of talk to me to some of those conversations of ensuring them that they're going to get their money's worth and things. I'm sure they saw your work ethic and things like that, which made them more willingness to invest. But kind of talk to us how that conversation went. Hey, I want to go to California for a competition that I've never done before.
Yeah. Well, it was yeah, that's the way I kinda brought it up to them. Is they had seen how much work I put into it, and I've never put a, amount of work into, anything else like I have with strongman training and just strength training in general. Like, it's like my life almost revolves around everything I do is for my strength and my body, and I think they saw that and how much, time and effort I put into it, and, think they were in a position to be able to fund, that trip. So it was one of those things at first they were like, "I don't know, that'll be a lengthy trip," but they just see how addicted I was to training for it, how many I made friends up into it, just how my body was changing, how I was bettering myself, and they were just like, at the end of the day, it was like, okay, we're gonna travel over there and do it, and it was an awesome experience for them too, because even not even just for you, but if your family, I think strongman benefits your family and your friends as well, because not only do you get to travel, but if
Mhm.
they're able to travel too, they get to see all these other
Yeah.
states and possibly countries one day, if you're
Mhm.
a pro. And I think that's a great opportunity for your parents and your friends as well, not just you.
Yeah. Well, not only that, but life transitioning, people seeing what you're doing and seeing the results. Sometimes I've seen people like, let's take my kid lifts because I lift, and a lot of
Yeah,
teen athletes are like that. It could be vice versa. Teens can influence their parents to get in the gym, and I've seen that before. So there's awesome benefits for that. But I'm a half my vacations are due to competitions, and I went to Vegas for the first time because of a competition. I'm headed to Wisconsin next week because of a competition. I've never gone to Wisconsin before. So I agree with you. It's a cool way to go places that you probably never would go before.
absolutely.
Um, so I love the fact that your parents, I'm a firm believer in, before you go ask for your parents to go spend 6, 7, 8, 10 grand on a trip to do a competition, make sure that your work ethic proves that their investment is going to be worthwhile. I tell my kid that, don't ask me to do that until I see that you're putting in the work to earn it. I don't
Yeah,
necessarily need you to earn the financial ways to do it, but I want you to think that every hour in the gym, I'm putting $100 towards that vacation or that trip. And that's how you earned our ability to do that. So I commend them for putting an investment in you, which they already do because they buy all that food for you.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the competition. Kind of let's go into how you felt leading up to it as far as nerves or anxiety, what it was like getting into that. Cause I know that competition was in a big like expo type
Yeah.
event, was it not? There was about 30 competitors, I think 28, 30, something like that. Tell us a little bit about that first um
Yeah.
mentality of going into that building that first time and seeing all the equipment, seeing the competitors, and then we'll get more into the event details.
So it was we had got there, we had landed in at night kind of. It was later in the day. And we had kind of broken in everything and I was just kind of hanging around at night and I was we had slept that night because it was late and then the next day I woke up and some of the competitors were down the street from me because we had got there, that afternoon. And so I had went and walked, it was like 5 6 minutes. I walked to where they were and I met some of those guys and we talked around for 30 20 30 minutes and it was so cool talking to other people who did the same sport and understood the same things because strongman is so it's kind of rare to find people who love strongman and actually get strongman. So it's like I'm the only one in my area and I'm sure he was the only one in his area, but when we two collide then we can just yap each other's heads off.
Well, that's what's also important about social media now and can kind of reduce that isolation of, being in an area that maybe isn't as prone to it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so we had all hung out and we had walked around, got some food, and that night we had just we had hung out, we swam, we got like I said, we had ate food, and then after that I went home, and then the next day I went to go meet up with that Nathan Hurst guy I said I'd followed for a couple years since my freshman year. They were eating, and I'd been wanting to meet them because we had actually been on the phone a lot prior to the competition.
Mhm.
So I walked and I met them, and that was a super cool thing. Seeing those guys you've talked to for over a year online, and now you're actually finally seeing them in real life. It was like so awesome to see them, and they were super huge, jacked guys. And I remember just like this is so cool. Like everybody around me is doing the same thing I want to do, and like has the same passions I have. So yeah, we all walked to the expo. There was a weigh-in day. It was either in the morning or in the afternoon. We all went in the afternoon after we ate food together because all most of the competitors kind of linked up, and we went in Golden Corral. We smashed that buffet and loaded up there.
Poor Golden Corral.
Oh, dude, we had people. We had a bunch of people over there. Like we had people like asking for pictures, like just because we were all so massive, and we were
Uh,
like, we're not even pros. Like we're this
yeah.
is a teenage competition. They thought we were just these big grown men.
Yep.
But yeah, that was
Um, so you got there a couple of days before the competition actually started, it sounded like, right?
absolutely.
Okay. So we went through weigh-ins. Not a big deal for you because of course you don't have to make weight. You're a super heavyweight, which is an advantage of someone else. And one of the cool things about pro strongman is they don't have I shouldn't say pro strongman, but professional world strongest man type. They don't, it doesn't matter what they weigh. But now some amateur and lighter pros, they have to actually cut weight, make weight, which gets in a lot more interesting conversations. But talk to us about the day of the competition, kind of leading, going over there. How did you feel mentally? Did you have any nerves? What did you do if you did? Kind of conversation.
Yeah, so the day of the competition, I woke up about the time change was it's 3 hours behind in California. So I woke up earlier than I normally would, but I felt super rested. So I was totally cool with it.
Which I'll give props going a couple days early, help that out way.
Yeah, that's why I tried to go a couple days early because I knew it was going to be different. Um, so yeah, I did that, and I woke up, and I feel like it was about 7 a.m. and I had to be at the venue at like 9 or 10. And so my buddy, I had woke up to a text from my best friend back home, and he was like, this is your day, your time to go prove yourself. Everybody's doubted you, this is your time to go do your thing. And I remember I read that, and I was like, it's time to go. So I got up, I got all my stuff on. I got my competition shirt they gave me with everything on it.
Mhm.
And I remember I was so nervous on the day that I couldn't even barely eat breakfast. My mom had made me some eggs and I feel like some rice or something. And I just remember I took a couple bites and I was felt like I was going to throw it back up. I was like I
Mhm.
can't even eat. So
Yeah, it's
I just
anxiety.
yeah, I was so nervous. So yeah, I got all my stuff and I walked to the place. The walk was like 14, 15 minutes. I had actually saw people, that were big, strong guys going to the same place. So I knew, what was going on in the area. And it was a huge venue. Like I said, I got inside the area and I didn't have to go through the line through the front way. I went through the back and like I had this thing around my thing they gave me for it with
A
my name on
lantern?
it. Yeah, a lantern. And I got into the thing and I went a back way and these people that looked like they were just top like security and everything. They like checked my thing, let me in. It was like a super cool experience. Like I felt like I was some type of like celebrity.
Professional?
So
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So I got to my venue and I saw my friends. I caught up with them. We all got ready for the competition. I took some pre-workout, got ready for it, and the nerves kept throughout the whole day. But it was a super. The nerves the morning of were definitely the hardest.
Yeah. Um, let's talk about let's go in couple of seconds or a minute or so on each event. What was that first event?
The first event was axle clean and press ladder. So it was you got to clean and press 3 axles.
Okay. How'd that go?
So I actually placed first in that event. So I did really good in that event. So I was the only one out of my whole group to finish that. And that's when I was, kind of bragging on myself earlier about my cardio. Because, like I said, my cardio is very good for my size. I've done wrestling that was extremely cardio heavy. I do football, like I said, since I've been a kid. So the cardio was no issue for me. I was the only one to finish my ladder out of the whole group. It was I feel like it was 190, 210, and then 220 for 3 reps. And I
Okay.
smashed through it, and that put
And
me
that
in
was
first
for
place.
time?
Yeah. Wait, what'd you
Okay.
say?
It was for time?
Yeah. So it was timed, and it was whoever finished the ladder got
Yeah.
extra.
Yep. Awesome. So what was event number two?
Event number two was the trap bar, but like the frame deadlift.
Okay.
That's what it was. And that was my worst event I did. I think I placed like fourth or third or fourth in my class. I think third. I hit 720, which is
Not bad though.
it's not bad, but the guy who won the class pulled 920. So
Yeah.
it 200
Um, which frames are really hard to train for because one, a lot of places don't have it, but also every frame is so much different. You know, the width of the frame, the length of the frame, all that's going to play huge roles in how it feels and also how the weight distributes.
yeah,
Because the longer the frame, the different weight distribution and things like that. So I mean, it's those are one of the things that are just kind of you had to go see what on the day of because you might pull an 800 frame at a local gym that has one, and then you go to this weird looking frame that's wider, so your hand grip isn't the same.
yeah.
You just go, it's gonna feel different, so you never know. Let's go. How'd you place in that?
So I think I placed third overall in that one. So that put me in like second place overall, I think, for the
How
day.
many competitors was in your class?
There was 5 in my class.
So actually a pretty good competition then. So you could at least tell where you're at. All right, event number three.
So event number 3, believe was I think it was the yoke. Yeah, it was. I feel like the weight for ours was 560 or 580, something like that, and it was down and back for as many times as we possibly could.
Okay. How'd you do in that one?
I placed second overall in that one.
And do you know what the weight on the yoke was?
I think it was 560, 580,
Okay.
somewhere like
So
that.
decent, but not like for y'all size, not overly crazy, crazy.
Yeah, nothing insane. It was more cardio.
And you said it was down and back, right?
Yeah, it was down and back for as many times.
Oh, so it was for a full. Oh, that is cardio.
Yeah, super
Uh,
cardio.
event number four.
Event number 4 was sandbag carry, and you got to pick it up and then run down and put it over the yoke, and then
Okay.
come back down and pick up the other one. It was
Yep.
200 pounds to 250 pounds.
Okay. How'd you do on that one?
I was doing good, and I was super confident going into that event, but I wasn't aware on how slippery expo floors were. So I used my dad's shoes that were just some plain old running shoes, and I
Yeah.
picked up the sandbag. And as soon as I started running, I slipped and I fell on it. So
You're
that's
not
what
the
got me
first
second.
competitor I've talked to from that event that said the same thing.
Yeah, that
So
was
how
excellent.
did you end up placing? How did you end up placing in that event?
I think I ended up placing like fourth in that event just because that time slippage, and that really messed me up.
That's what I was about to say. Let's pause it before we go into event five. You had been doing really well coming in, top three. and then all of a sudden you had something, and a lot of people, they would say foolish or crappy, just a crap luck. What did that do to your mentality ending that event? Because I assume that it hindered it a little bit.
Yeah, so it put me in third place overall. In front of me was Nathan, and then the guy in first was Gabriel. So I was in third place, and I was a few points behind. So it wasn't an easy comeback. And I remember thinking, I was like, "Well, shoot, I thought I was going to win, and now here I am in third."
Yeah.
It's starting to like, I got to really turn this up, or like, this is, I'm not going to have a chance to do good at this. So it started to diminish my mentality a little bit, but at the same time, like I said, I've been an athlete and been competitive for so long that athlete kind of took over and was like, "Nah, I'm going to finish this. I'm going to give it my all." So, I went and on and through event four or through event five, and I just,
Okay.
gave it.
So definitely felt it, but because of your history in sports, you were able to overcome, that mental crash, but then turn yourself around and get psyched back up for event number 5. So how did event 5 go?
So
And
event
what
five
was
went
it?
good. It was stone to shoulder, natural stone to shoulder, and I believe ours was like a 240-pound stone, something like that.
Explain it what they you mean by natural stone.
So if you went to a lake and you just saw a big stone near like a bridge,
Yeah.
it's one of those kind of stones. So it's just a
So
natural. You could just go pick it up from a lake.
yeah, so a lot of people, when they hear the word stone, they think in strongman, they think the circular molded stones. This is not one of those. This is something natural. Usually has some length to it and some curves and weird shapes in it. It's not perfectly square. It's not perfectly circle or anything like that. I just wanted to make sure the audience kind of knew, because a lot of people, when they hear stones, they ultimately think Atlas stones, and that's not what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So, how did you do on that event?
So I did good in that. I placed second overall, but that event got me into second place overall for the competition because I did one rep with it, and it was actually kind of unfortunate for our guys because the older guys, the 18 through 19, their stone was heavier, but I had tried it in warm ups and it was actually easier because it was flatter and it had more area to grab onto. So ours was lighter, but it was kind of like a chubbier, kind of circular morph type
Mhm.
stone, so it was
Yeah.
way harder to get to your thing because it was so jagged and so like, hard to deal with.
So second place, tell us how you felt about your performance overall. Were you okay with the placement that you made? And what'd you think about your first competition overall?
I was disappointed that I didn't win just because I am competitive.
Mhm.
I thought that I was really going to win the competition and I had prepped for so long for it. So it did kind of bum me out that I didn't get, but at the same time, the guy who beat me and the guy who almost beat me, they had all competed before. One of the guy's dad was the actual strongman himself. Like they had been surrounded by it and they all had been training that for, some of them years. For me, I had been doing it for 4 or 5 months for a prep. So
Mhm.
it was something that was like, I can only be so mad at because I took, just like I said, 4 or 5 months out of my year from football, prepped for this, placed second, and that was my first time ever even trying. So this year, I just know I'm going to win because I have so much more knowledge on.
Okay, so talk to us. Speaking of your knowledge, talk to us about the transition. You went through football season again, probably wasn't as focused on strongman, just trying to maintain or add a little strength on the side. Talk to us
Yeah.
about what your training has looked like and what you're changing in your training and your nutrition and to lead up into this competition. What is it? I think it's the first weekend of August is the this year's strongest. Talk to us about the changes that you're making because of the lessons learned.
So yeah, after that strongman competition, I started cutting weight. Football season started, and I got down to all the way to 268 at my lowest. So I went from like 315 all the way down to like the low 270s, and that had cut me down a way. I got a lot weaker, a lot smaller, a lot healthier though. And then I did wrestling after that, so it kept some of the size off, and it was just I was way cardio focused, and it helped with my cardio a ton. And then after that, after wrestling season ended. Since then, I was about, I'd say two or so, I'd say about less than 2 months, about a month and a half ago. Since wrestling has ended, I put on 30, a little bit over pounds. I went from like 275 and now I'm about 305. So I am at about like the 30-pound mark in just about a month and a half. And I've
Yeah.
gotten way, way stronger. I've added like way onto my bench, way onto my squat, my deadlift, everything is just blown up. So this year I'm way more knowledgeable than I was last year because last year it was just cram everything in my face I can and that's how I'm going to get strong. This year I'm eating the right foods, I'm eating enough of it, I'm staying hydrated, I'm hitting every area of training. I'm doing my prep way more serious. Like I said, I'm super confident I'm going to win this year.
What has changed in your has anything changed in your training as far as making changes to, you know, how often you're hitting events, what when how you're peaking, because technically you said you got done with wrestling in a month and a half ago, so that would have been late January. That's still 6.5 months before the competition. I mean, you have a lot of off season to still grow. So talk to us a little bit about how you're going to handle that, and just as far as the changes go into that training. Any training changes that you've made?
So a lot of training. I think a big thing that I'm changing this year versus last year is even though I have a football weightlifting class. Last year, I kind of got peer pressured into lifting at the high school weight room and doing the program that the coach was giving me because he would kind of threaten my grade or something like that. And they didn't really understand what I was doing for strongman at that time, prepping for a show. So they just were like, "Oh, well, I want you to do what I'm assigning you." It wasn't the stuff I needed to do. And I knew if I did it, I'm not doing what my coach is giving me. There's no point of having a coach. So a lot of the confidence this year versus last year, this year I made everybody my low battery, my fault. It says this year I'm kind of being way more serious and I'm way more like, I'm doing this for my prep. If you have a problem with it, that is what it is. But this year I'm not going to kind of get peer pressured into doing different stuff. Because I'm going to be the kind of guy if I don't win, I'm going to look for an excuse why I didn't win. So I'm just kind of going to try to tick off all the excuse boxes so I don't have anything. If I lose, I can just say I wasn't good enough. There's no
Yeah.
excuse I can fall.
Okay. And I want to talk a hypothetical. Say you go in here, you've made the changes, you come in second again. What do you think the next step is? Or because like I said, I see a lot of teenagers. Unfortunately, I think failure is one of those things that it's like, well, I should just quit. Do you feel that that's going to be your mentality? Do you feel like you just will take it to the next step and look for the next competition and keep progressing? Where as a hardcore competitor, which it seems like you are, how do you think you'll handle if unfortunately that does happen, or kind of where's your mind going into that as far as, hey, I want to win, that's my goal, I'm going to give everything I have, but I just want to see, are you in love with the sport or are you in love with the idea first?
Yeah, no, yeah. That's the thing with me is I love the sport and I love just lifting weights. So the competition is just a benefit of that.
Mhm.
Obviously, like I said, I wanna win, and I'm gonna try to make sure everything I can do to win. But if that wasn't to happen, it definitely wouldn't be. Oh well, this just isn't for me because I put so much work into it, and I know that I can capitalize off of what. Even if I win, I know there's going to be stuff I'm going to be able to work on because I noticed. Oh well, I was a little bit weaker at this, and maybe I can work on this, even if I do win. So for me, I'm always looking how to get better, on my body and my strength, and that's just going to be part of the process.
Great answer, man. Great answer. I'm excited. I say that because, like I said, competing is the fun part of the sport or of the training. I never want anybody to think that winning um, is is the ultimate do or dive training or competing. Like there are very few people that are going to be top overall. I want some people's mentality to just be like, you know what? That's my goal. I'm going to keep working my butt off to get to there. But even if I'm third, fifth, 10th, I enjoy the lifestyle. I enjoy what it's doing for me. I enjoy the stress relief. I enjoy the being able to eat big meals and stay strong. So I just say that because unfortunately, I think with social media and teenage mentality, some people are so scared about not looking like number one that they're like, well, let me just give up and go to something else. And if that's the case, you're just going to constantly give up and never actually stick with anything.
Absolutely.
Because I mean, even the number one, take Brian Shaw, one of the people that won the most America's Strongest championships. He doesn't always win, but he's came back and came back. And that's what's the true definition of strength, in my opinion, is, being able to come back even when proven a little bit weak in that situation. And it's also the true testament to someone's adversity. So I just kind of wanted to ask that question. I just want to spend the last couple of minutes talking about a subject that we brought up a little bit before, because this subject I think is relative, and we've mentioned it. You talked about your sophomore year, a big life change. I'm going through a separation of your parents. Talk to us a little bit about what that did to your mentality and how the weight room allowed you to kind of handle that situation.
Yeah, so I think football is a good outlet, but I feel like it's very limited because it's not year round. You can't do it at any point in the day. It's only a certain time of the day,
Mhm.
and I just don't feel like you can get your your expressions and your emotions out like you can in the weight room. I think being in that situation like I was in, a lot of the times I felt kind of weak and helpless, like in that situation. And when you're you feel like you have no control in a situation like that, but when you're in the gym, you have all the control. You have all the, you have all the access to everything you want in the gym, you can have. And in situations like, parents, separating, like I said, you feel like you don't have much power. But I think the gym is a good outlet for stuff like that because you feel like, oh, well, I have power in here and I can, better myself in here. So, it's a great outlet.
Yeah. So would you say that was a huge factor of you being able to manage that situation? And some people unfortunately really digress in that situation because they don't understand how to manage all those emotional changes and all those environmental changes. Would you say that the gym was a main factor of you being able to not only handle and deal with all that, but also thrive, or at least progress? I should thrive might be a little strong word, but progress in your own goals because of the gym?
Yeah. Well, I think a big thing for me is I've always wanted to be more confident in my body because growing up as a kid, being kind of chubby, I've never been super confident without my shirt or even with a shirt or, clothes on. But I think the gym is a great way, even if you're, like I said, you're a bigger guy and you've always been a heavier set guy. If you get into the gym and you start, really hitting the weights and you start eating, decent, you'll notice, really good progression in your body. And then all of a sudden you've unlocked confidence. And I'm still unlocking confidence that I've never had before.
Awesome.
Even guys that are scared to talk to girls, if you put work into your body, that helps with stuff like that you would be more nervous to do typically because
Yeah.
you have more confidence.
Totally understand. I think the barbell, the the first thing that the barbell benefits you from is an increase in confidence, because I think personally that most people underestimate themselves, and once they realize that they're capable of more, it unlocks a mentality of, "Oh, well, if I know that I'm better than I thought, what are my real limitations? Let me start dreaming or inspiring bigger goals and seeing if I can achieve them." And it's just a constant cycle of giving yourself more hope or more aspiration, and to thinking you can accomplish more and more and more. And it's a great cycle to be in. So I like to end the interview with the same two questions I ask my athletes, because the ultimate goal of this is to try to influence kids and teenagers that aren't lifting weights, that aren't competing, to get, step out their comfort zone and maybe get into the gym or sign up for a competition. So I ask all my interviews two questions. One, what do you think the sport of strongman can do more or better in order to entice more kids your age or younger to the sport? Like, what is it not doing, or what don't we have access to that can maybe bring more of y'all to the sport?
I think there definitely should be more youth exception in strongman. I know a lot of strongman, even a gym close to me, you have to be at least, I feel like 16 to be able to go to the strongman lesson. And I just feel that's a big issue with strongman. I feel like strongman is looked at by everybody, and even lifting weights in general by everybody is, oh, well, don't start too early because you'll stunt your growth or stuff
Which
like
that's been
that. But
proven 30 years ago wrong. It's
yeah,
actually the best thing for your growth and joint health. But okay, I
exactly.
get what you're
Yeah, and
saying.
it's just stuff like that. Yeah, it's
So
like it's people who are closed minded. They like, oh well, if you lift weights, you're gonna hurt yourself, or it's that's terrible for a kid's back, and that's just not true. And I just feel like it should be pushed like on to get stronger with strongman and even just lifting weights in general. Like they can lift weights and it'll make them a better athlete. They'll be stronger. They won't have as much pain. Like it's just there's so much benefits with that come with it.
But as far as your biggest recommendation is just more access at a younger age.
Yeah, 100%.
I think that's a great answer, which is one of the reasons why I don't know if I told you this, but we run strongman Saturdays and we start our kids as early as 6. So
Yep.
we have PVC logs and axles and wooded farmer carries, and we use med balls as stones as low as 14 pounds. So I mean, we try to accommodate just so the kids can learn and build that confidence early, and build that aspiration to get bigger and stronger at such a young age. So I think that's a great answer, and I challenge gym owners, strongman competitors, strongman gyms to figure out ways to incorporate not only youth but teen, and also incorporate something for the littler guys. Not everybody's going to be able to become a 6'3", 300-pound athlete. I think that understanding the benefits at a smaller body weight, or even someone that might not ever become the strongest but still give them the athletic mentality of the sport. Like, I know that we have a lot of like kids that are underweight in our programs because we accommodate for that, and we try to lead them into a stronger mentality, and then eventually maybe even talk to them about how to gain weight and become a healthier weight, not necessarily a big person, but at least someone that isn't underweight. So I think that's a great answer. And I think, like I said, I want to challenge strongmen gyms out there to maybe incorporate a youth program. And if they have any questions, reach out to us on the podcast or reach out to us on social media, and we can work with them and kind of give them lessons. And I know that one of the episodes that we're going to do is kind of how we've introduced that into our regime. So I look forward to that.
Absolutely.
Last question, and I always ask is, what would you tell someone if they were coming up to you and saying, "Hey, I love what you do. Why should I get into the sport?" Or what has the sport done for you? Kind of give me a sales pitch to someone your age of why they should do it as well, based on your experience.
I would say the biggest thing is it'll unlock and especially for me, and I just noticed this, it'll unlock more confidence and more growth and more potential to grow in your life than I think anything else. And, there are, other things that you can do to get this similar effect. But I think just strongman, powerlifting, bodybuilding, anything with the weight, I think if you put, your effort into it, like you'll just unlock confidence like you've never seen before. If you're not super comfortable in your body, I think you really can turn yourself into like, oh, I actually have confidence right now. I actually feel good about myself. That kind of thing. I think
Nah,
it's a great for your mental health as well.
I think that's a great answer. Well, Logan, I want to say thank you. This has been a great time. I appreciate getting to know you a little bit better. I'm proud of all the effort and the discipline that you put into, man. I don't know if you hear that enough, but to do as many things as you do and put your all into all of them, it takes a special kind of person. And I can tell that success is definitely in your future with that kind of work ethic. I want to wish you good luck this August at America's Strongest Teen. I can't wait. We're actually having the meet director of that competition on the podcast in the next
Nice.
week or two. So I'm excited to talk about him about the future of not only teen strongman, but that competition as well. So good luck. We'll be rooting you on, and just continue success in your endeavors. It's been great having you, and I look forward to watching what you do in the future, man.
Thank you so much, man. It's been a pleasure.
All right. Well, to everybody that listened, I want to say thank you so much for listening to the episode. Go give Logan a follow and a shout out, and see what he does at America's Strongest Team 2025. Thank y'all for watching. And remember, stay strong.